is also gracious and wonderful, and she's so patient. She stayed on the stage the entire day to wait for me. I'm really excited about that.
I do.
But we love her and Justin and all that GHC, APCA, and the RAC does to make this happen for healthcare providers. I want to give a shout out to Jen and Table 9. I love you guys. You guys did an awesome job. And I just get excited when I hear doctors blend their clinical knowledge with administrative law. And so it was great seeing that. If you're on LinkedIn, please follow me, Ed Norwood. I just posted a question and answer from our webcast that Justin had sent to me on responding or combating excessive medical records requests by plans. And I just posted that. I'd love for you to actually see it. I heard a funny story of two doctors and an HMO manager that died and lined up together at the pearly gates. The first doctor came up and said, as a pediatric surgeon, I have impacted and helped hundreds of children in my lifetime. So St. Peter said, you may enter. The second doctor came up and said, as a psychiatrist, I have helped thousands of people live their best lives. St. Peter said, come and enter into the joy of the Lord. The last one said, I was an HMO manager. And I denied overutilization of care and got countless families affordable health care. St. Peter said, well, you may enter, but the third day is denied. And after that, you have to go straight to hell. If you're an HMO, I'm messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
A little.
Jesus saves. I'm messing with you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What happens when we say no to Medicare Advantage plans? Just write this down. Just say no. One of the smallest words in the English dictionary, no is a powerful word. It can help you choose and refuse some things in life. To draw a boundary line in your healthcare system and the peer-to-peer review that declares to payers no far and no further. It will strengthen your influence. It will grow you professionally. It will instill preventative measures that change the way payers see you, so that when they see your name, they will say on that authorized care that they're requesting or preparing to request for medical records, they're going to quote some law, they're going to file a complaint, just pay it, don't ask for medical records. That's the objective in creating boundaries with the word no. Every cell in the human body is protected by its cell membrane or its boundary. Like our cells, we have to have solid emotional and professional boundaries that keep us operating at our best, that protect our patients and careers from injury by improper plan denials. We had a recent case with UHC where they had denied 32 cases as not medically necessary. We did research and found that notification was made on all of these cases, and they failed to respond within 60 minutes, deeming the service as statutorily authorized. And then 2 days later, they came back and switched their denial reason. And they said, well, we're going to deny it because you did not notify us within 24 hours. And so we said, no, we will not accept your denial. We begin to declare to them that absent of any notification timeframe language in the contract, under existing federal law, post-stabilization begins after the patient has been stabilized. It does not indicate a time frame, but simply after they're stabilized, and stabilization occurs in the opinion of the treating provider, not you. And so we learn that no liberates us, but yes commits us. Many providers don't push back against payers in prospective or concurrent denials because they just don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to threaten the relationship. Because in society, we try to please others by saying yes. But every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else. Every time you say yes to an improper request for medical records. Every time you let MA plans give you a tracking and reference number and do not try to convert it to an authorization because of their failure to respond timely, you say no to something else. Every time you commit to change an inpatient to an observation after patient discharge without concurrence of the treating physician, you say no to federal laws designed to protect beneficiary access to care. You say no to timely authorization and revenue capture. And possibly you set a precedence where they could use a waiver argument to show past conduct of giving them medical records in these scenarios over and over and over again. This is why we're in healthcare. We exist to discover rules of just conduct and to define the culture in our organization, what we will do, what we will not do, when we will send medical records, when it is an improper request for medical records. In fact, I want to give you 5 words that will absolutely change your life when a payer requests, in your eyes, insignificant information. These 5 words, I'd like you to write them down. They are not in the PowerPoint, but they are absolutely life-changing. Are you ready? Why do you need that? That's it. Because we exist to defeat giants. Let me give you a great example with that. There is a minimum necessary rule that was spoken about earlier. It is under 45 CFR 164.514D. And it says a covered entity may not use, disclose, or request an entire medical record except when the entire medical record is specifically justified as the amount reasonably necessary to accomplish the purpose of the use, disclosure, or request. And so we've created little disclaimers because we feel that plans have way too much fun with disclaimers. They'll say things like, this authorization doesn't constitute guarantee of what? Payment of the claim. And we found that they're having way too much fun, so we've created some disclaimers as well. Please provide the statutory authority or the legal rationale as to why the entire medical record is justified in light of the authorization you provided on January 15th or of your failure to respond to our requests for an authorization within 1 hour. And in creating those disclaimers, we've given our doctors and our case managers ammunition. So they'll begin to understand what their why is in healthcare. We exist to defeat giants. Please write this question down. What is your why in healthcare? We want to inspire healthcare providers to advocate for medically appropriate healthcare nationwide, to inspire them to keep showing up to work as if they had never failed. What's your why? Write this down. I will do this, and put a blank next to that, no matter what. I will do this no matter what. I will fight for justice no matter what. I will continuously improve processes no matter what. I will provide or advocate for medically appropriate health care pursuant to WIC-line versus state no matter what. Because my motto, first thing I gave you today was, just say no. Here are 3 things payers, MA plans, don't want you to know. Number 1, CMS views treating doctors as the plan. Number 2, they don't want you to be aware that the unreasonable peer-to-peer timeframes they're giving you are not currently in existing Medicare law. And we've seen from different parts of the country with our provider membership, certain plans, I don't want to name them, Humana, who will actually state that we'll give you 1 hour, and certain parts they'll say we'll give you 4 hours. I have no idea what dictates or determines if you get 1 hour versus 4 hours, but we'll talk about that just shortly. And then concurrent patient denials must be transferred. We'll discuss that as well. CMS views treating doctors as the plan. Please write this down. 42 CFR 422.113B2 states that the MA organization is financially responsible for emergency and urgently needed services, regardless of whether there is prior authorization, and in accordance with the prudent layperson standard, regardless of final diagnosis. That means you cannot see someone come in as with severe crushing chest pains, and if we code the final diagnosis as gastritis, deny it retrospectively based on that final diagnosis, and not consider the presenting or the chief complaint when the patient came in with severe crushing chest pains. Let's continue. B3 states that the physician treating the enrollee, not Kaiser, not an optional plan, must decide when the enrollee is considered stabilized for transfer or discharge, and that decision is binding on the MA organization. C2 states this. The MA organization financial responsibility. They are financially responsible for services pre-approved by who? A plan provider or other MA organization rep. Now, I recently, in a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request, requested some information on this. We were fighting a plan who had authorized care, and there was a treating doctor who was involved in the care, and they were trying to do a retrospective medical review. And in the FOIA request, between Seema Verma and several other individuals with CMS, they didn't answer my request, which wanted the statutory authority for something, by the way. They instead gave me about 36 pages of emails sent back and forth, and this was one of them, where it simply states in Chapter 4 of the Medicare Managed Care Manual, when a treating physician is contracted with the plan, CMS views him or her as the plan. You're going to catch that and get excited in just a minute. CMS views them as the plan. And when I first got this, I was really kicking myself because several years ago, I was appearing in ALJ hearings on behalf of ambulance providers, and I remember that 80% of our cases were won when the ALJ decided if the nephrologist was good enough to administer dialysis, they were good enough to determine how the patient had to arrive or get to dialysis. And they use this language that CMS views the treating provider as the plan. So we requested more information, and then we found in that same document, here's another part of that Medicare manual, where it says under limitation of enrollee liability, CMS considers its contracted providers as an agent of the MAO offering the plan. Later on, under section 10.16, it states furthermore, if the plan approved the furnishing of a service through an advanced determination of coverage, it may not deny coverage later on the basis of a lack of medical necessity. That means what you authorize, you cannot rescind or modify later if you determine we don't believe it was medically necessary. And so we've begun to use this in some of our challenges. As you can see there, perhaps if you're on that side, on this side, you'll have to look it up. But if you're on this side, you can see that we've begun to use that argument. Per CMS, contracted providers are considered agents of the plan in addition to any failures to respond to our request for authorization. We also will provide snapshots. We'll go to the UHC, the Blue Cross, Molina website and look for the doctor who was involved in the care, and if affiliated, we will provide screenshots with their face smiling or provide these profiles showing it's your doctor. It's your doctor. Watch this. 422.113 C2 states that the MA plan is financially responsible for post-stabilization care obtained within or outside the MA organization that are not pre-approved by a plan provider or other MA organization rep, but administered within 1 hour of the request. So anything that you actually provide within 1 hour of the pre-approval request is covered under this section of law. Now, notice this for a moment. In fact, let me just say this. Because oftentimes when you call for a pre-approval, you will find that they don't give you an authorization, but they give you a tracking or reference number. And they'll tell you that this tracking number will track the care of the patient. Why is that, though? Why does the law state that when you call, they have 60 minutes to provide an authorization, but they provide a tracking and a reference number? Write this down. Because an authorization creates a contract. And they're attempting to open the door for a retrospective medical review later by stating it's not authorized. This is simply a tracking or reference number. All right, so what's the purpose of the tracking and reference number? Please write this. The tracking and reference number constitutes that contact was made and triggered the responsibility of the plan to respond to your requests within 60 minutes. Let's talk about that just for a moment under the second thing they don't want you to know, peer-to-peer timeframes. 422.113 C2 III states the MA plan is also financially responsible for post-stabilization care obtained within or outside the MA organization that are not pre-approved. So when they give you a tracking and reference number, that is not a pre-approval. Are you with me? By a plan provider or MA organization rep, but administered to maintain, improve, or resolve the enrollee's stabilized condition if the MA organization does not respond to a request for what? Not tracking number, not reference number, to a request for pre-approval. So when you are calling and faxing, on the top of your fax cover sheets, it must say requests for pre-approval. Please change that. 90% of you do not have that in bold, all caps on top of your fax. This is a request for pre-approval. I am not faxing you or calling you to say hi. I am calling to secure something that protects us in authorization and revenue capture. It also states they're financially responsible when they cannot be contacted. When would that take place? After hours, weekend admissions, holidays. How would you use that section of law? You could go to their website and print out the page that shows the UR hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and say because you could not be contacted, you're financially responsible for any care over the weekend after hours where you did not have the capability to respond within 60 minutes. But look at the last one here. They're also financially responsible when the MA organization rep and the treating doctor cannot reach an agreement. Now, there could be different reasons why we couldn't reach an agreement. Perhaps we simply disagreed because we talked, or perhaps we were trying to get the treating doctor or the physician advisor on the phone and they were doing rounds and they couldn't connect with you. or because you gave us 1 to 2 hours to do it, and it could not happen on your time frame at the expense of the patients we were seeing. So notice it says they're financially responsible when they cannot reach an agreement. Not when they cannot reach an agreement within 24 hours. Not when they cannot reach an agreement within 4 days. But if they cannot reach an agreement, and it says, and a planned physician is not available for consultation, but we're talking about the scenario where your doctor or physician advisor is not available within their time frame. Notice the last part says this: in this situation, the MA organization must give the treating doctor the opportunity to consult with the planned physician. Well, you could say, well, they did give an opportunity and you didn't respond within 1 day or 4 days. But it also says, and the treating doctor, if that conversation doesn't take place, may continue with care of the patient until a planned physician is reached. Not until a planned physician is reached within 1 day or within 4 days, but until they are reached or one of the criteria in C3 are met. That leads me to the third thing they don't want you to know: concurrent patient denials must be transferred. And I'll take some of point 2 and 3 in this topic. Notice C3 talks about the end of the MA plan's financial responsibility. It states the MA plan's financial responsibility for post-stay care, it has not pre-approved, given a tracking and reference number, but no authorization has been issued, ends when a planned physician with privileges at your hospital assumes responsibility for the enrollee's care. Or 2, a planned physician assumes responsibility of care through transfer. Or 3, an MA organization rep and the treating doctor reach an agreement concerning the enrollee's care. But if we could not talk, if we could not call you within 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 4 days, and you did not assume care for your patient because we could not have a conversation, and the patient is discharged, then the end of your responsibility is upon patient discharge. You are responsible from day 1 until the end of the patient leaving, because when we could not conduct a peer-to-peer, or when you denied it concurrently, you did not assume care of the patient via transfer or settle and make an agreement with me to keep the patient here. Notice 422.590, the Gens did this really well today. It talks about when the issue is the MA plan's denial of coverage based on lack of medical necessity, the reconsidered determination must be made by a physician with expertise in the field of medicine appropriate for the services at issue. And I have a case that's really close to my heart that I'll conclude with. And it's not a Medicare Advantage case, but it has the same parallel of the doctor that you're dealing with needing to be competent. This was a 14-month-old baby who was diagnosed with AFM, which is a disease that just came out in 2012. It mimics polio. Within 48 hours, this baby was a paraplegic. And there were 2 neuropediatricians who had recommended the baby go to a Baltimore, Maryland institute that was the only institute nationwide that could treat this condition. Notice Dr. Greenberg was involved. She wrote this timeline to us. On 1/23, she said that she had gotten a denial, and don't worry about her misspelling of meat, saying it did not meet MCG guidelines. What happens when you're denied because it did not meet Interqual or MCG guidelines? Interqual and MCG have interesting disclaimers, which I'll show you a little bigger here on the screen. The Interqual disclaimer says this: the clinical content reflects clinical interpretations and analysis and cannot alone either resolve medical ambiguities of particular situations or provide the sole basis for definitive decisions. This content is intended solely for use as screening guidelines with respect to the medical appropriateness of healthcare services and not for final clinical or payment determinations concerning the type or level of care provided or proposed to be provided to a patient. Milliman has something similar. They simply state, qualified healthcare professionals may use our guidelines as a tool to support medical necessity, but they should not use them as the what? Sole basis for denying treatment or payment. Our guidelines must be applied to individual patients, case by case, always in context of a qualified healthcare professional's clinical judgment. We then filed a complaint with the Arizona Medical Board. And in that complaint, we stated that we dispute Dr. Tolson's decision to deny authorization for inpatient rehab services based on the lack of authorization because two of Cooper's primary physicians, treating physicians with expertise in the field have documented the medical necessity of this requested service, and Dr. Tolson does not have the clinical expertise to make an appropriate medical decision in this matter as shown and described below. On the same day, one of our attorneys submitted a denial, or rather an actual appeal to the plan, but later in this complaint, we wrote and we quoted the Milliman guideline, as you see there. We then stated at the very bottom that considering Dr. Tolson's clinical background, it is evident that his expertise is not in rare neurological autoimmune disorders in pediatric patients, nor any remotely similar field. Dr. Tolson did not utilize MC guidelines in conjunction with the expertise of a qualified, competent medical professional. Thus, it is clear that he was not competent to evaluate the specific clinical issue at hand, and his medical decision is inconsistent with those of qualified healthcare professionals. We wrote that. By the way, this was submitted on February 18th, 2019. Real quickly, within 1 or 2 days, next day, Cooper has been approved. This is the mom writing to us. Cooper has been approved for 6 weeks of rehab. Now I just have to see if his spot is still open or available at the Institute. And she began to just say, thank you. Thank you, thank you. She later wrote this. I love this, on May 5th. Cooper is making so much progress. It's simply and truly incredible. I watched him take his first steps a few days ago, something I wasn't sure I would ever see again. I can't explain how incredible this place is and what they do for children with spinal cord injuries. Thank you again for getting us here. So I started this afternoon with a question. What is your why in healthcare? Why do you show up to work every single day? Healthcare is a law to be defended by you. You're the ones who stop and restart hearts again. You're the one who puts severed hands back together. You're the reason patients have access to care. In fact, you're the reason we're all here today. We all came into this world or were cared at some point in our life by the hands of someone in your profession. Never forget your why. Never forget your purpose. Never forget the miracles you help create every single day, the lives you change, the patients you give hope to. Because your why will save lives, and it will compensate you even when your paycheck doesn't. Thank you.
Thank